Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen neighbor stories. In this Ripe story, a drunk Karen crashes into her neighbor on his motorcycle and then launches a harassment campaign claiming he caused the accident. But she picked the wrong guy to mess with and her lies are about to catch up with her in a big way. Let's dive right into the video. And the title story starts like this. Hey, I am M, 32, and I've been hooked on motorcycles since I was a kid sneaking peeks at my uncle's old Harley. For the last 5 years, my Yamaha MT-10, good choice by the way, has been my baby, getting me to my warehouse job in Sarasota, Florida, and back every day. I live in this chill cul-de-sac where everybody's on a first-name basis, you know, waving at your neighbor while you are watering the lawn or swapping small talk at the mailbox. It is a solid spot with retirees like Mrs. C, young families, and a couple of friendly dogs that don't crap where they shouldn't. At least it was solid until Kay rolled in 6 months ago and turned our quiet little street into a reality TV episode. Kay is in her late 40s, always strutting around in yoga pants or oversized sunglasses, and a vibe like she's the star of her own drama. Right off the bat, she was a problem. Either yelling at T, the retired firefighter across the street for parking his truck a hair too close to her driveway, or spreading gossip about L, the nurse next door, being too up in everybody's business. Her real passion though? Throwing these obnoxious parties every other weekend, blasting cheesy pop music until 2 AM, with enough empty wine bottles and beer cans in her recycling bin to stock a bar. I keep my head down, always rocking full gear, which consists of my helmet, armored jacket, gloves and boots when I ride, but Kay's got a beef with everyone, especially me. She's called my bike a death trap to my face like I'm some reckless teenager instead of a guy who's been riding safely for years. By the way guys, I forgot to mention, if you also ride a motorcycle in real life, let me know what you are riding in the comments. As some of you might know, one of my biggest passions, or maybe the biggest one, is motorcycles. And by the way, I specifically picked this story today because the guy in the story is riding the same bike as me. Anyway, it was a muggy evening around 7:30 PM. I was cruising home from work with my MT-10 rumbling that distinctive sound under me. By the way, I wouldn't say rumbling, it's more like a thunderstorm in my case. Anyway, I was hyped with that free feeling you only get when you're on two wheels. I'm always extra careful at the four-way stop a block from our cul-de-sac because it's a magnet for idiots who treat stop signs like suggestions. I slowed to a crawl, checked left, right, left again, and eased through when it was clear. Out of nowhere, Kay's white Lexus SUV comes screaming through the stop sign from the right, no brakes, no warning, like she's in a high-speed chase. I swerve hard, but her bumper clips my rear wheel. Next thing I know, I am flying, and then skidding across the asphalt, my gear grinding like a bad soundtrack. My left wrist pops with this sharp, sickening pain, and my legs feel like they've been run through a shredder. My bike slides into a ditch, front wheel mangled, looking like it got drop-kicked by a giant. I'm lying there trying to catch my breath, heart pounding, when Kay stumbles out of her SUV. She doesn't check if I'm okay or not. Instead, she starts yelling, "You moron!" She slurs her voice loud enough to wake up the whole damn neighborhood. "Motorcycles are dangerous. You should not be on the road at all." She's flailing her arms, face red as a stoplight, reeking of booze. I guessed it was wine or maybe vodka, hard to tell. She screamed, "This is your fault for existing. I didn't do anything wrong." I rip off my helmet, wincing as I sit up. "Karen, you hit me. You blew the stop sign." My wrist was throbbing like a jackhammer, and I could feel blood soaking through my jeans from the road rash. T and L are already sprinting over from their yards, having seen the whole mess go down. T is shouting, "Em, you good man?" while L's on her phone calling 911. Karen is still going off. "He cut me off, he's lying," she screams, pointing at me like I'm the one who rammed her. She is swaying on her feet, eyes glassy and clearly hammered. T tells me later that he saw her swerving down the street minutes before, nearly taking out Mrs. C's mailbox. L says she was weaving like she forgot which side of the road to drive on. 3 cop cars pull up in about 10 minutes with lights flashing, plus an ambulance. The first deputy starts dealing with Kay while another checks on me. The paramedics are poking at my wrist, which is swelling up like a grapefruit, and cleaning the road rash on my thighs and shins. It burns like someone is pouring hot sauce on me, but I'm clear-headed enough to tell the deputy what happened. I had the right of way at the stop sign. She came out of nowhere and didn't even try to stop. They have Kay do a sobriety test and she is failing bad, stumbling around, cannot walk straight, slurring her responses. When they pull out the breathalyzer, she blows a .14, almost twice Florida's .08 limit. They cuff her and she loses it, screaming, "This is his fault, he's stressing me out." Well, the deputies don't even blink. T&L give their statement saying Karen was driving like a drunk lunatic before she hit me. The roads got no skid marks from her tires, meaning she didn't even touch her brakes. My bike is a wreck though, and the paramedics load me into the ambulance for the ER. Karen is shoved into a cruiser, still yelling about how I wrecked her life. I find out later that her sister, some big-shot real estate lady from Tampa, bailed her out that night. At the hospital they say I've got a hairline fracture in my left wrist and some nasty road rash on my leg. I am then stuck in a brace, out of work for 3 weeks and staring at $6,500 in medical bills. My MT10 needs $7,800 to get back in shape because it requires a new front wheel, forks, handlebars, engine case repair, and a full paint job. The damage was worse than I initially thought. The impact cracked part of the engine casing too, but Kay, she doesn't back off after getting out on bail. No, a few days after I'm home, hobbling around with bandages and a brace, she catches me at my mailbox. "You gotta drop this, M," she slurs, her breath stinking of cheap wine. "You're ruining my life with your lies." I tell her the state handles charges, not me, but she's too far gone to listen, just ranting about how I faked my injuries. I slam the door and jot it down in a notebook I bought to keep track of her nonsense. It gets uglier over the next few weeks. Karen starts telling some of the neighbors that I'm a scammer, saying that I'm faking my injuries for insurance cash. L catches her at the neighborhood barbecue whining to Mrs. C, the sweet old lady next door who bakes cookies for everyone, about how I am milking a scratch for a big payout. Then Karen really ramps things up. She starts making loud comments when she sees me outside, calling me a loser biker and leaving notes on my door. One said, "Hope you learned your lesson." Another time she's out there late at night shouting, "You're a liar, Em. This is all BS." I call the sheriff's office and a deputy shows up telling her to knock it off. Karen says she was just walking her dog, but there's no dog in sight and she is slurring again. The deputy files a report and I add it to my book along with pictures of her notes. I do some digging through a buddy who works at the courthouse and it turns out Karen's got a DUI from a few years back, pleaded down to reckless driving. That makes this crash a felony in Florida. DUI with injury under Florida statute 316.193, which can mean serious time. The criminal case takes a while to work through the system. Karen is there at court looking like she hasn't slept in weeks. Her hair's all messy, eyes puffy, like she's been crying or drinking, or both. Her lawyer tries to spin a story about how she was stressed from work and didn't see me, claiming I was speeding on my bike and that the intersection visibility was poor. But the evidence is solid. My medical records, no skid marks from her tires, T&L's statement, and that breathalyzer test. The prosecutor shows my documentation of her behavior after the crash, painting Karen as someone who shows no remorse. The judge listens to everything and doesn't buy the excuses. You injured someone while driving under the influence and you have a prior conviction for impaired driving. The evidence clearly shows negligence and poor judgment both during and after this incident. Kay's lawyer convinces her to take a plea deal and she pleads guilty to felony DUI with injury. The judge sentenced her to 14 months in state prison, a 3-year license suspension and $3,200 in fines. The court ordered her to pay restitution for my medical expenses and property damage. The initial amount was set at $14,300 based on the bills I'd already received, but it could be adjusted if additional costs came up. The civil case against her insurance takes longer to resolve. Kay's insurance company fights everything at first, claiming I was partially at fault, that my injuries were not that bad, you name it. My lawyer has to get expert witnesses, medical evaluations, the whole 9 yards. Eventually, they settle for $28,500, enough to cover my medical bills, bike repairs, lost wages, and a bit extra for the pain and aggravation. It's not like a wonder lottery, but it gets me back on my feet and then some. My MT10 gets fixed, looking good as new with a fresh coat of black paint that gleams in the sun. The bike shop did excellent work and honestly, some of the new parts are better than in what I had before. I'm now riding again, wrist brace long gone, road rash just faint scars I barely notice anymore. Kay served her time, she got out after 11 months for good behavior and her Lexus got repossessed while she was inside and her landlord evicted her for non-payment apartment while she was locked up. By the time she got out, a moving van was hauling away what little stuff she had left, mostly cheap furniture and boxes the repo guys didn't want. She moved in with family somewhere up north, I heard. The harassment stopped completely, and T and L were relieved. Mrs. C could enjoy her garden in peace again, and the whole cul-de-sac felt normal for the first time in over a year. The neighborhood had a little cookout to celebrate getting our quiet street back. We did not make a big deal about Karen being gone, we just enjoyed being able to have a barbecue without worrying about some drunk lady starting drama. I'm back to my routine, riding to work every day, tinkering with my bike in the garage on weekends, and actually looking forward to coming home to a peaceful neighborhood. Sometimes the legal system works exactly like it's supposed to, even if it takes a while to get there. The whole thing taught me that documenting everything and staying patient with the process pays off in the end. Karen blamed me for existing, but in the end her own choices caught up with her and justice got served properly through the courts. And the next one is another story from r/bestof and is titled "I was victim of a hit and run, and I received threats because of it. And I got my revenge." So this is a story from almost 2 years back, but I just found this subreddit and thought it would be a good story. Also, this story uses KPH because this is in Colombia. So it was September 2011, I was driving my Nissan in a quiet residential area. I approached an intersection that was rather notorious for people disregarding the stop sign. I have the right of way, as streets going either north or south usually do. I was going 40 km/h and I look right as I'm about to cross the intersection and I see a big Mercedes SUV hauling ass just meters away from the intersection, easily 60 to 70 km/h. I see a cell phone by her ear and she sees my car, brakes to around 30 to 40 km/h and crash. My car even hit the sidewalk with enough force to lift the entire right side away from the ground. I am shocked and a little bruised and literally crying 10 seconds after the crash. I love my car. She drives away 10 seconds later. As a first but small victory for me, a cab driver that saw the crash, can be seen on the far right edge after the crash, turns around and chases her and brings her back. My family and some friends arrived to help me. Uncles are lawyers, while the cop and the respective insurance lawyers sort everything out. This lady driving the Mercedes and her husband threaten us, "You're gonna be screwed out of insurance, watch your bank accounts," etc. The traffic cop was bribed by them, we saw her husband giving him money, and drew the accident sketch incorrectly. My uncles not so kindly proceed to point out this error. The sketch is corrected and they didn't like that we noticed, which was a second victory. Cop asks both parties to sign off the report, I don't sign it, you will know why, and we leave. So then my car was towed as it was undrivable, and her car was never even present at the scene of the accident after the accident itself. Fast forward 2 days later, a friend suggests, "You know, the building in front of where you crashed has to have surveillance footage." And bingo, third victory, we go ask, get the video and take it to her insurance and our insurance company. Now, the reason I didn't sign the accident report was because in her statement she claimed I was speeding, going the wrong way, and that I attacked her car. Lying to the insurance company is grounds for cancellation. On top of that, my dad found out both the cars they had, the Mercedes and a BMW, are leased. My dad is friends with the owner of the lease company. He handed over everything. A week later we get the call that they took both cars back because they were used. Fourth victory. A month after the accident, I get my car back as good as new. The cost of repair was greater than the value of the car. Biggest victory, but it was fixed because my dad is also friends with the owner of Nissan in Colombia. He told the insurance company, friends as well, "Don't let this car get totaled. He loves this car." And that is how I got my great revenge on the person who I hate most in this life. P.S. We also investigated them. We got their address, names, kids' names, where they go to school, what they do for a living, just everything. Long story short, they have stolen a lot of money from the state thanks to shady businesses they run. Edit: the reason I refused to let my car go was because at the time it was a 14-year-old 1997 Nissan Sentra with 45,000 miles, aka 74,000 kilometers. I inherited the car from my grandpa and I love it to death. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I own a ranch in South America that I love everything about, aside from its unfortunate location. I cannot say for sure, but I would guess the area was all farms and ranches at some point. Now, in modern day, I'm dealing with being separate but really close to a residential community that has an HOA in it. And not a nice HOA that just wants to make things better, but instead a power-hungry group of people that want everything to be the way they want it. And anybody that doesn't comply with that can leave and find somewhere else to live. I'm not creative with names at all, so for the leader of this HOA, I'm just gonna go with the good old-fashioned Karen. Now, Karen is known for overreaching her actual authority that usually results in making members do things they don't want to, like repainting their house when she says or not having a party. This time she reached way too far when she came to be and explained that the HOA had eminent domain over my ranch. She also clearly had zero idea what eminent domain was and just assumed throwing around big words would get her what she wanted. And my guess is it had worked for her in the past. For those wondering, it's when the government can force you to sell property because the land is needed for something important. An HOA cannot claim this, and they were not even trying to say the land belonged to them. She was trying to say that eminent domain meant that she was allowed to build things for the HOA on my property, and that would mean that I was part of it and had to pay dues. Dues way larger than anybody else because my property size was so much bigger. I argued with her that she had no right to take my land, and if she bothered to look at property records, she would see I am outside of the HOA territory. Going so far as to pull it up as she stood in front of my house to show her. She of course had a response that only a Karen would have. Karen, you probably just photoshopped that, I know the truth. Me, this is not photoshopped, it's just a map showing the lines for where everything is, directly from a government-sanctioned website. Karen, well, they redid the maps and the new ones show that this is actually HOA property. Your maps are just old and outdated like everything else on your ranch. I don't know why she had to turn that into an insult, but it was clear I had no chance in trying to reason with Karen like a normal human being. In her mind, she owned my land and nothing I was gonna say in that moment was gonna make her believe otherwise. Me, I don't care what you say, I know that I'm not in the HOA and I won't be giving you a penny, and if you try to build on my land, I will have it knocked over before a frame is even built. Don't mess with me. Karen, don't threaten me. She marched off like I was the one accosting her instead of minding my own business. About a week later, I was off the property with my entire family and I came home to see 3 giant bulldozers on my land. They were all labeled as HOA property right on them. She did not park them off to the side either and instead spread them out in a way to block all roads in and out of my property. She had basically barricaded me out of my property. I could still try and hop a fence, but I had no way to get my truck on my property. And it just was not feasible to do that walk, especially for my wife who was pregnant at the time. I went right to Karen and demanded that the bulldozers be removed. She told me that it was now HOA property and she could park them if she wanted. However, she would move them to not be in the way of the road as long as I signed papers submitting to the HOA jurisdiction. That would give them free reign over the land and I would pay a monthly due to them. I was not giving her anything after pulling a stunt like that. She went too far, blocking me out of my home and business. I was lucky my family had somewhere else to stay, and in the meantime I stayed on the ranch with my oldest son to try and keep things running the best we could. Taking care of the animals and collecting eggs and milk even though we did not have a way to ship them out. I called a lawyer as fast as I could to try and get a court order forcing Karen to move these damn bulldozers. The lawyer filed the paperwork and tried to push it as urgent the best he could. Paperwork stating the HOA had claimed false eminent domain of the land and using bulldozers blocking all access in and out for the owner, which is me. The judge ruled in my favor and ordered that Karen was not allowed to block the roads in and out of my property. They were ordered to be removed, but Karen was not going to legally stop without a fight. She tried to counterclaim that the HOA had seized ownership of the property and that me and my wife were actually squatters that they were trying to evict. It did not work, of course, because as she seemed to not understand still, I'm not part of her damn HOA. She cannot seize land as the HOA if the property does not fall within their territory. Also, there would be legal records of this kind of thing filed. She was looking for some weak excuse that could never actually work in reality. Now, you might be wondering, because I was, where does a Karen get 3 bulldozers? The answer to that was her son, who owned a construction company, a company who had a loose contract with the HOA to build the facilities on my land. A very suspicious act that, if followed through, probably would lead to some money laundering and kickbacks. It just reeks of a shady deal to me. It probably also was why she wanted to use my property in the first place. Because as much as she acted like she wanted to build things to help people, I was not buying into that. She wanted to get her son a big job and a ton of money, when the buildings would probably just end up being things she wanted that did not benefit anybody. I was not finished or satisfied with just getting my land back. I filed a huge lawsuit against both Karen and the HOA for attempting to steal my land, blocking me out and potentially ruining my source of income. And of course also endangering the animals by not giving me access in and out to take care of them. Also damage to the ground where the bulldozers ran and ruined my grass. Basically, any small petty thing I could think of was being thrown at them. Not everything stuck, as some was minor and petty. The big ones did stick though, and the HOA and Karen had to both pay massive amounts of fines for what they did. Also, Karen separately was facing criminal charges for harassment, illegal seizure of property, trespassing and some other stuff. Her son was not off the hook either, because a construction company has rules to follow on where they park their machines. My farm was not an acceptable spot for that, and his company had to pay large fines to the government and to me as well. By the time the dust settled, Karen was forced to resign from the HOA as she caused this huge mess for them and lost them all that money. Privately, she also didn't have enough money to pay for her house, and her son, sure, couldn't help with his company losing the money as well. She had to sell the house and leave, and it's probably the only kind of circumstance I don't feel bad about the person losing their home. She did it to herself, all because she wanted to stretch her power more than she could handle. And here Ripe stars absolutely no empathy for entitled corrupt HOA Karens. At least not from me. Anyway, the next one is a malicious entitled mom story, and it is really interesting. So my 17 female mom, 41 female, took me out to get makeup the other day for a friend whose birthday is coming up. We entered the store and all was going really well. I was checking out concealers while my mom was on the other side of the shop looking through various shades of lipsticks. Enter entitled mother, late 20s female with her devil spawn. I say devil spawn because her kids were misbehaving wildly and she did not bother even once to tell them to stop or something, not even a minor rebuke. I say devil spawn because that about sums these two kids up. They were running wild around the shop, throwing testers around and being a general nuisance. My mom stepped in when the kids started poking their slimy little fingers into the lipstick testers. I get it, they are just testers, but ew. People are likely gonna use those to decide whether they like their shade or not, and God knows where those fingers have been. Like, one of them was legitimately picking his nose minutes ago. My mom, having 4 kids of her own, looked around to find their parent. EM was the only one in the shop besides us. My mom called out to her, and this is how the conversation went. "Mom, excuse me, are these kids yours?" I know, very obvious, but my mom is a very polite person, so it's not to me. EM, yeah. Mom, can you please tell them to stop touching the testers? They are not toys. EM, if it's such a problem, why don't you handle them? Oh boy. My mom left the shop for a few minutes and signaled me to not follow her. She came back with 2 buff security guards in tow. The kids were still poking their fingers in the testers. The guards walked up to the kids and in the deepest baritone ever, one asked, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" The kids looked terrified and cue the waterworks. EM immediately stormed over and began reprimanding the guards for scaring her poor little angels. She then saw my mom nearby and she screamed, "You did this!" At this point she was practically hissing like a cat. "How dare you teach me how to parent?" Mom, in an eerie monotone, "You told me to handle them, hence I handled them." She screamed more obscenities at my mom, the guards, anything around really, but the guards were not having it and told her to leave. She created quite a scene, but thank everything that is holy, she left. My mom had quite the story to tell at dinner. A rather comedic encounter with an entitled parent. And yeah, Ripe stars, I would say props to the mom. She certainly knows how to handle an entitled Karen. The next one is a malicious compliance story once again. Today marks the beginning of a new era. An era where a school district stands up for itself and thumbs its nose to the 1%. Today's MC is really a continuation of an original MC from 2 days ago, where a student demanded that I let go of their phone, so I let go and let both his phone and a school window get damaged. Originally, administration was letting the parents know that there's no way that they'll be paying the parents for a replacement phone in this instance. A security guard and 34 other students witnessed this kid take his phone aggressively out of the teacher's hand and subsequently launch it across the room. It was 100% the student's fault. Administration was willing to drop it and move on, hoping that the family of this student would do the same. That was definitely not the case. The parents of the phone thrower demanded that the teacher, me, aka OP, pay for this phone, saying, "You better pay for my son's phone." This is when the admin of my middle school with district backing performed the best MC I've seen in a bit. I'm proud to be at my school district today. The district has come to the conclusion, after investigating the incident, getting statements from students, witnesses, me, security, etc., that it was the student's fault that the phone flew in the air. The district agreed, however, to pay for the student's phone as it was technically in a teacher's possession when it got damaged. It was an iPhone 12, so the check was probably around the area of $800. Then administration did them one better by also sending the parents a bill for the window to the tune of $1,678. It was not a typical window, nor is it easy to replace. Once the teacher let go of the phone, it was in the student's possession, so now it is the student's fault. I'm not sure if this is the argument they made, but I'm presuming this is their justification for it. Doing some quick math, it looks like they are paying $800-something either way. Plus, the student is in ISS for destruction of school property. And before we end the video, let's read one last funny story from r/malicious compliance. It is titled, "Important calculation due? Sorry, no work from home allowed." So I'm currently in my malicious compliance phase at work right now. I got ripped a new one last week because I needed to work from home in order to get some urgent stuff done for a conference I needed to attend the following week. I was explicitly told that I could not work from home without approval, and I was told that I signed a policy about it. I responded that my job requires me to work from home all the time, to which they replied, "You signed the policy." So now, after I leave the office, I turn off my work-issued cell phone and never look at it on the weekends. I'm a salaried employee, but I'm not gonna beg my employer to allow me to work from home. This weekend I got a call on my personal cell from one of the managers about approving some billing rates that were due. I told her I wasn't allowed to work from home and I will get to it on Monday whenever I have the opportunity. Everything will be late, but I signed the policy. It literally would have cost them nothing to just let me do my damn job. I already get paid a fixed rate, but if they want to play stupid games, they can win stupid prizes. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow, and please don't forget to check out my playlist on the left if you cannot get enough of my content.